Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wrestling Territories Podcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about some more what ifs. And I've heard a lot of people talk about what ifs to different podcasters, and I got to thinking about that a little bit. So, let me, from a fan's perspective, let's talk about what ifs, right? So, what about the what if Sting had become the third member of the NWO? Now, how would that have looked from a fan's perspective? Well, we probably would have not have seen a long term situation with that. In my opinion, Sting was just still so over that, and he still had a lot of following with little kids too. Whereas Hogan, not really. A lot of his Hulkamania little kids were already grown up by the time he started doing what he was doing in WCW. Those of us who were kids were now in our, late teens, early 20s or so, or even older. So Sting, coming along a little later, had more of a following with kids better than Hogan did, in my opinion, at that time. And I really feel like that if Sting had been the third member, if Hogan decided, no, I don't want to go heel, and they'd put Sting in there, I don't think it would have had a long term effect. I just don't believe that you could be able to have Sting go in this direction. I don't think him being a heel would have been that good. He'd been a face for so long. And even though he did go heel later on in WCW, I just don't really feel like it would have worked out for the NWO. And plus, there was also talk that Lex Luger could have been the guy too. I don't think it would have had a long term situation with the NWO. I think Hogan had to be that third man no matter what. Sting, on the other hand, like I was saying, I just don't think it would have had a long term value to it. Um, I think people, in my opinion, were at a point where Hogan was not getting cheered quite as much in that era, in that time. And he'd been battling the Dungeon of Doom, which was kind of a cartoonish style situation in a way. But Hogan was a cartoon character himself, back in the 80s. So for him to go heel, it worked out good. It got him out of that cartoonish style Hulkamania type thing, and brought him into a place where people could actually boo him because they wanted to boo him. And I think there was people who were probably upset with him turning heel, and I think there's people like very glad he turned heel. The NWO did get some steam. They had fans. They had people with NWO shirts out there. So it worked out good. Sting, again, as much as I'm a huge fan of Sting, he is my favorite wrestler of all time. I just don't think he could have made it go that long, just like Hogan did. But again, if it had happened, what would it look like? Why would you turn Sting against WCW? He'd been there. He's the only one that stayed. He never left. Why would you turn him against WCW? You'd had to have a good storyline behind it. Why does he not want to be a part of WCW, or why would he want to try to destroy WCW, the place he helped build? Because when Turner took over, Sting was the guy that was starting to get major momentum, and then he was the only guy left. So why would he want to tear it down? The story probably wouldn't made a lot of sense, and you would have really had to thought about it real heavily to make it make sense as to why Sting wanted to destroy WCW. So here's another what if. What if stunning Steve Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin, what if he never left WCW? What if they never fired him? How would have looked later on if he had stayed in WCW? Remember, he didn't have the long hair after a while. He got his hair cut real short. He's becoming a Stone Cold style character in WCW in a way. But I don't think he would ever been Stone Cold Steve Austin in WCW. I think that's kind of a fantasy situation there. But if he'd have stayed in WCW as Stunning Steve, doing what he was doing as a heel, he was a good heel, don't get me wrong. He could have been one of those that um, could have gotten over and become the world champion eventually, just like he did in the WWE. But I think he would have done it as a face, because if Hogan would have went heel like he did, and the NWO came about, I could kind of see Stunning Steve Austin being the guy to battle the NWO along with Sting, along with Macho Man. You would see that. It'd be kind of a cool combination. Sting, Steve Austin, and the Macho Man versus the NWO. That'd have been pretty good. You would have never got the Stone Cold beer drinking, middle finger throwing Stone Cold we all knew later on in WWE. But I think if Steve Austin would have stayed in WCW and the momentum they had against the WWE, it'd have been very, very hard for the WWE to compete it then. They wouldn't have had the Stone Cold that they had, and the fans probably wouldn't have latched on to a lot of the WWE, even with DX around. I think it would have destroyed WWE. I think WWE would have went out of business if they didn't have Stone Cold Steve Austin like they did. So you guys remember when DX invaded WCW? They came in on a tank and they did all that stuff, and WCW shut the door down on them and didn't want them to come in. What if WCW would allow them to come in? What if they just said open the door and said come on in? Now when they went on in, it's hard to tell. But now if they had and they ended up on WCW TV, how would it have dealt with that? Would it be lawsuits? Would it be, I don't know, maybe not. Because you think about it, WWE showed up there, right? So if they open the door and they go into WCW, they're going ahead and take the tank right on into I think it was Norfolk's in Virginia at that Civic Center there. But anyway, if they'd opened the door and they went in and would have got captured on WCW TV, maybe a little confrontation with the NWO or Sting and those guys, who knows? That would have been a very interesting situation because you'd have had WWE with their cameras and WCW with their cameras. And even Eric Bischoff's talked about this in past podcasts. He should have just let them in. And I think it would have been interesting. I don't think DX would have went to the ring per se, but if you'd have got him showed up on WCW TV, it'd have had fans talking all over the place. Like, okay, we seen WWE cameras inside a WCW arena, and we've seen WCW with their cameras on DX. It would have had people talking all over the place. Now, what would you have had to have done with that later on? I don't know where the WWE or WCW would have went with that. Could there have been a cross promotion situation that could have happened if WCW opened the doors? I kind of doubt it, but what if? What if that would have happened? What if they just said, you know what? We're going to have us a joint pay per view, DX versus WCW, NWO, whichever. That would have been interesting. I just don't think it would have happened, but I really wish now, looking back, that Eric Bischoff would have told him, open the door, tell him to come on in. That would have been really cool. And so the final what if is going back to the territory days. We're going to go back to the 80s. What if Hulk Hogan would have told Vince McMahon, no, thank you. I'm staying with Vern Gagne? How that would have changed professional wrestling forever. I think Vern Gagne in the AWA would have been where the WWF is, right? Or WWE now. I really believe that's where that could have happened. I think Vern would have really took over the world with Hulk Hogan, just like WWF did. It, but it would kind of depend on the marketing there too. Hogan came in under a smart regime with Vince McMahon, and they knew how to market him and do the right things with him. I think Vern would have probably kept it kind of old school and may not have pushed the envelope, and you never would have seen a rock and wrestling situation, and maybe not even WrestleMania. Or if you saw WrestleMania, it probably wouldn't have been the WrestleMania we remember now with Mr. T and Hulk Hogan. But if Hogan would have stayed in the AWA, it would have been very hard for Vince McMahon to accomplish everything he accomplished. So, I mean, Hulk Hogan, a lot of credit towards Hulk Hogan. He deserves a lot of credit. And if he would have stayed with Vern Gagne, I think it would have really hurt the WWF. And I don't think they would have been the juggernaut they are right now. I could be wrong. Okay, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this what if. In future podcasts, I'm going to start making the podcast a little longer eventually. But right now, what I'm doing is like short story podcast or like what ifs and short story type situations. And I want to elaborate on things later. I'm hoping to get some people on here, maybe go live on the weekends or something. But we'll see how that goes. I got to try to get some things lined up. We're going to wait till after Christmas time, see what we can do about that. But I'm hoping you're enjoying these like what ifs and just my perspective on it. Just my opinion is all it is. I mean, don't beat me down. It's just what I'm thinking. But comment what you think too. What about these what ifs? And comment below if you want me to talk about more what ifs or even rumors that you have heard about professional wrestlers going to one organization or another, but it never happened. So comment with that too, and I'll just give you my opinion on it. Until next time, God bless. See you soon.